Hello everyone, my name is Tukumburu. I work at ICJ Kenya in the capacity of a program officer. I am passionate about governance and democratic issues and human rights issues. I've been introduced and I've introduced myself in other spaces as a human rights lawyer and a human rights activist. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Wallace Sinderu. I am an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, a human rights lawyer and researcher. Here at ICJ, I work in the capacity of a program officer. I'm passionate about women's rights, amongst other rights, and I'm glad to be part of this conversation today.
Historically, women have suffered certain injustices in this country, and because of these injustices, and not just here in Kenya, but across the African region and the world at large. Traditionally, a woman is seen as a caregiver, not as a provider, and these notions have also been advanced by religion, where women are seen as caregivers and not as providers. So because of that sense and that feeling that women can sit at home and wait for the men to go and bring back an income which they can live on, then this position has made women to be disadvantaged in some certain way. So this made women's roles in community to be that one of raising children, taking care of the home, and raising probably the animals in the family. And when they would work, then they would work to maybe produce food for the family. So because of this, their reliance on men was high. And this reliance then has led to the disadvantaged position that women are in. But with time, these are slowly changed, but we can still see it even up to date. I know of situations where certain women have remained in violent and harmful relationships because they depend on this man for a living, where this man pays maybe for school fees for your siblings, pays school fees for the children, your children in that home, pays for rent, foots the bills, and things like that. So women get a bit scared. Such a woman will be a bit scared to venture into life by her own. So this will make her remain in that relationship for the sake of providence, so that she doesn't go homeless or she doesn't lack food or clothing. Then she will want to remain in that relationship.
To add on to that, we have to appreciate that we come from a very patriarchal society, and patriarchy is very nature favors men as compared to women. In this patriarchal setting, as my colleague has mentioned, there are these roles which we are made to appreciate as being drawn in terms of the sexes and not gender. So there's male and female, and then there's a man and the woman. And of course, we're told they're very clear roles and we're very distinct. You're told this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're supposed to do. Currently, even back in the day, women did not have the luxury of being able to fend for themselves. They were told, as my colleague has mentioned, you wait for it to be brought to you. And that notion has continued up to date, even the present. We find that there are very many women who are just now at home, dubbed housewives, waiting for this man to provide for them. In such a situation, then more or less you're at the mercy of this man because you have no any other source of income. You don't have a business you're running, you're only here to take care of your kids. So what you're given is what you're supposed to manage until the rest of it is provided, whenever that will be. In such a situation, you become more of a dependent than actually more of a partner or even a wife to this particular person. In the event this is withdrawn, then what happens to you? So it's more like an addiction, if I can say so, because then you're hooked onto this, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. Its effects, the prolonged bit of it is that what happens to you afterwards? You've not worked in a very long time, so where do you start in terms of looking for a job? Mm-hmm. You have no business acumen, so where do you start in terms of setting up a business? So before all this is actually even materialize and come to be, if you are to leave such a situation, becomes very difficult. So what options do you have? Then you just remain where you feel you're safe and you're comfortable, and we can be able now probably to have it a bit more easy. I also have to add, unfortunately, that we now live in a bit more of a materialistic society, and where we have not been taught that the notion that even right now, the narrative is men are supposed to provide and women are also supposed to receive. So in such a situation, you find nowadays even women are telling men that you're the one who's supposed to provide for me. I need a man who can be able to probably who drives a big car, gets a good salary. Where are we living? So ideally, you want to live what you do with a soft life, but we never look at the far-reaching consequences of that. And the challenge remains that if things were to happen, and especially that relationship will become abusive, then you're probably tied there, right? Socially, they even actually men who control whom their partners, their wives, their girlfriends can actually interact with. Economically as well, right? How much money do you have? How much money do you need? How can I top it up? But they never tell them, let's now fend for both of us to grow ourselves. And that now becomes a challenge. And I think we have a bit of work to do in terms of like changing the mentality that where both men and women can be on an equal equilibrium while we're living life to make it more tolerable, so to speak. Yeah.
And I think I agree with most of what you've said, Wallace. And when you mentioned, I just reflected on the statement. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Because I know a lot of work has gone into ensuring that we are moving away from this notion where the man is the provider and the woman is the caregiver. And we are coming back again to that notion, where we see right now the young women that are becoming wives, are becoming spouses or partners to certain people. And what you described, they want the soft life. And these are young women that have been given the advantage of education. They've received the advantage of exposure. But for some reason, I think we see them, the fear of probably breaking your back or getting to something. Then you reside, you become comfortable when you find a partner who can provide all these things for you. I understand we live in very harsh economic times, and everyone wants rest. Everyone wants some certain comfort. And I think it's good that we agree that these things don't just come overnight. It takes work. So some people, because of that fear of work and maybe breaking your back, you might end up settling for this person who will treat you so badly. But because they provide what, quote unquote, we call the soft life, maybe a car that is fueled every day, an apartment that is furnished, that you don't get to pay rent for, food in the fridge, internet has been paid, you have what people call a girlfriend allowance, you can spend as if you're working. So in the event the relationship turns abusive, the way Wallace has correctly stated, and you see, even these men, they are praised in some sense. They prey upon these young women, because you can see them feeding them slowly by slowly. The way you've just said, it's like an addiction. So all of a sudden you don't have to pay rent. So already, even if you are in a job, the money that you are getting for rent, now you get to keep it for something else. The next time you are in the salon, they're like, no, you don't have to do that, baby girl. And they have a lot of sweet nothings, by the way, to tell you and to feed you. You don't have to, hey, let me take care of you, So they pay for your salon, they pay for your nails. The next thing, they are paying for your internet. The next thing, when you're going to shop, they want to do your shopping with slowly and slowly. You didn't even have a car, probably now you have a car that is being fueled by this person. So you are okay using your Ubers and using your Matatus. But this person now has introduced a new comfort in your life in the form of a car. And this person even becomes bold enough and tells you, you don't have to work. And the next thing you know, probably this young lady goes ahead and even resigns from her position. And then now, the prey in this man comes out. They start regulating your social life. The people you used to interact with, now they are telling you, cut them off. You can't be in certain places, you are now mine and things like that. Before you realize, you can't go back to work, You probably even forgot how to work. You know, you are so dependent on this person. There are a few things you used to take care of by yourself. Probably you had younger siblings, the way I had mentioned. You used to chip in maybe in their school fees and in other stuff. All of a sudden, you can't do that. So it becomes a problem, and then you become a victim that has been preyed upon by this man. And it's a sorry state that most young women, or even women in general, are finding themselves in.
Interesting is also, even when we listen to the kind of music we listen to, and there's usually that famous saying of you're not crying a Range Rover or laugh on a border, and that tells you where we're at right now.
Yes.
Right. So how much are you intending to forego for the pleasures of this world generally? We just want to be, in a very luxurious, kind of setup. What are the consequences? A good example is when a woman is independent, right? They fend for themselves, they pay their own bills, they're driving their own car, they're paying their own rent. Chances are they'll be deemed to be a man behind all that, right? We never look at women being able to be independent economically and socially. And the question will be then, if she's independent and economically and socially, then that is a problem in itself as well. Because now the narrative will just be, why are you doing all these things, breaking your back, while there are men out here who would actually look out for you. So it goes back to what we were talking about, right? Don't break your back, let somebody else break their back on your behalf. So even those women who actually are independent are viewed more or less like outcasts, so to speak, right? Because you're going over and beyond, and you're not supposed to. But they appreciate now if I was to become hooked in terms of my social settings, my social circles are to be determined by this particular man, what would happen to me, right? In terms of the economy itself, how free will I be with my own spending, with my own money? We also don't appreciate the mental health challenges it comes with, right? This kind of being controlled. You're more or less like a puppet.
Yeah.
What does that do to you mentally? Right now, people are talking about depression, but I don't think people actually even appreciate the magnitude of it, right? Many people don't even appreciate actually depressed. But if you were to trickle back and then see what led into it, this would be some of the challenges. I think very few women can actually say, I lead a very good life, which is, backed by this man, his finances, and just us being together. It's very limited. The bulk of them want to control it. And majority will be the people who have all these resources. You find in most instances, they're probably a bit older. So when you take all these things and the society we're living in right now, then even addressing them becomes a challenge, right? We're saying, no, I don't want to be independent. Why don't I be independent? I want to just enjoy life. But at what cost are you going to do so? So if most women, I appreciate like what you said earlier about life being a bit hard on everybody, but we have to appreciate it may be hard now, but we get better soon after. We have to appreciate what would happen if I find myself in this particular situation. For how long can you take abuse, right? When you're talking about SGBV, the gender-based violence, we also have to focus now even on the mental aspect of it, the emotional aspect of it beyond the physical. It might not be physical, but it's even worse when it's emotional. It's even worse when it's psychological. Because before you know you're at the verge of of suicide and also the things. Even when actually not talking about what would happen after, assuming the day she feels I'm already done, and then this maybe somebody's killed along the way. Now it becomes a whole different story, right? Because it gets to a point you're like, I can't do this anymore. There's no way out, and then that's the only way out. And then before you know it, you're here, you're an accused person being charged with probably murder or manslaughter. It's rather unfortunate. And I think it's about time that we talk about women empowerment. It's not empowering them to be as against men, but for them to be able to appreciate they can be able to do the things they want to do comfortably by themselves, within their own rules, within their own settings, within their own sphere, and that will be much more. Interestingly, nowadays, I have a friend of mine we met, and she was telling me how her friends have actually invested in going to golf clubs because they want to get men who have money. They actually call it generational wealth. And we were laughing and saying generational wealth is quite humongous. But you find in these families, they're actually like 150 more people waiting for that generational wealth. Because the upbringing itself is, in my opinion, is problematic. Because the upbringing itself, we're told, like I mentioned earlier, the roles. don't break your back. Let your husband do it. Don't spend the little you have, let your man do. At what particular point do you say, well, this is for me and for us, let's do it together for the betterment of you, right? This dependency in itself is very problematic. You're not, I don't think you're a robot to be controlled. You want to be this person, can be able to determine their life and say, this is what I want to do. And I'm positive right now, not speaking for the men generally, but just say, if you meet somebody who you can be able to grow together, you know, you have these issues about dependency. It'll be very clear cut, and we'll find it's more like healthy, thriving relationship.
Yes.
So even mixed relationships nowadays be very transactional, right? Because of the dependency socially and economically, mixed women to be very transactional.
Yes.
I can get ABCD from Fuku, and I can be able to get everything else from probably Tomodik, and that's gonna be it. It's rather unfortunate. And I think it's about him had this very honest conversation in very social spaces, and especially social spaces. That with the advent of technology, like of course with social media, that is the narrative being sold.
Yeah.
Right? Why wouldn't you do this and everything else? I mean, look at the content creators. I started Home Pretty, I have a brand new Range Rover. How many others want that kind of thing? They don't think the long term, they only think the short term. And the long term might be very detrimental. It might not be what they expect it to be. Yeah.
I agree.